Lochoya sampo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe ze parche pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma A Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Oma Guru Vajrad Sumati Munishas Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagelu Pakyuke Sundan Daginga Pakyuke tukdan dageyi tön yerme çıktı çingi lo makyuke kudan dagelu makyuke sundan daginga makyuke tukdan dage tön yerme çıktı Chingelo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Swaha Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi jinso give sonam ki drola pinchra sange drupar sho sange chedan tsogi chonam la jancho pardo dani kyaps Dagi jinso give sonam ki drola pinchra sange drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Give Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nella Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni, possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo Lai Ke Dan Ludan Jin Ke Drubundan Da Mi Ke Nam Dan Drowa Kuin Ke Dhanama Che Tsampa Tamche Ke To Dagi Che Ten Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Una delle caratteristiche
One of the special characteristics of symbols is that symbols are able to speak in more ways and on more levels according to the capacity of each one and of the moment. The same symbol reflects what one has inside eventually. The experience, the knowledge guides each one according to what each one's capacity is. When we take it and put it like as written, as a concept, partly is also that because also words are symbols, but it's much more reductive. When we take the self-healing practice, my feeling is that as years pass, it's like a sort of spiral. A path, you do the same path and partly it seems the same thing. But the more you repeat it, you see things that you didn't see before. You are able to feel things that you didn't feel before. And so it's a bit like doing every day the same path. On one hand, it seems like you're doing the same thing, you're just walking on the same places, but it's never the same path. Because we that are walking it are changed, have changed, and we are able to see characteristics that we didn't see before, and we can see this connects with that, and so on. And so the same practice over time during the life, as one does it, it's not the same. It transforms. And also in the way of explaining it, telling it, there are many different levels to where one can explain it. Yesterday we ended the explanation of the part of the generation stage. Of course, we can get even in further details, we can stay here much longer even. But I am quite satisfied of what we were able to see. As we said initially, the self-healing practice is divided into three parts. We have the preliminary part, the effective practice, and the conclusion. The effective part is divided into two parts, the generation stage and the completion stage. The generation stage is divided into two parts, where we have the three transformations and the body mandala generation. So we have seen the part where there is transforming death into Dharmakaya, birth in Samogakaya, rebirth into Nirmanakaya, and then the generation of the body mandala with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas or the 5 chakras. With this, we end the part that is called the generation stage. The completion stage, in general, is something that is not always, or actually in the majority of cases, it's not explicit in sadhanas, in the texts and practices, mainly at the beginning. Lama wanted particularly to put emphasis on this part, and this remembers me somehow a discussion that there was between two of great Buddhist masters that came to the West. And it was a discussion, we're talking about the 70s or a bit earlier. And one of these was Geshe Champa Gyatso and the other Lama Yeshe. Of course, I was not present at the discussion, I wasn't even born, but what I heard of it, and one of the points of discussions was that, okay, some aspects of the teachings are very complex, profound, difficult. What is the right approach? We simplify things and not talk about those difficult aspects, or just really because they're difficult, we repeat them and explain them many times so that then one bit by bit can understand them. And here there was a whole discussion on different approaches, and I believe that at the end it should be like the two things together. On one hand, when we start with something, it's important to be able to access to that thing at a level with which we can relate. If right away we use very complex words, things that are not within our reach, then we get afraid. We get far away unless there is like something a bit strange that I get excited of the things that he doesn't understand. But in general, what happens is that one takes some distance. And the ideal goal would be that as one understands more and more, then opens up to new knowledge. But the difficult things need to be faced. Because just because they're difficult, they need to be faced many times. First on a gross level, then that is more superficial, to then get like a more deep level. Otherwise, they will always remain unreachable. The alternative is a very gradual path, very long, that bit by bit, then one becomes ready and gets to these other concepts. Lama Rinpoche, inside of the self-healing practice, wanted to put emphasis on the part that is called the completion stage. In Tibetan is called the Tsogrim. That is one of the most profound and complex parts of the practice, difficult to understand fully, but very important, given an approach that is initially more superficial, to then be able gradually to go deeper in it. In general, the completion stage, first of all, what is the difference between generation stage and completion stage? We could say that the generation stage is where we build the mandala. The completion stage is when we use it. One of the descriptions is that, that is given, is that the generation stage is where one imagines, kind of pretends, so to speak, and the completion stage, realization stage, is where one actually does it. So in the generation stage, I imagine the absorption of the winds, and in the completion stage, I actually do the absorption of the winds. In the generation stage, I imagine the elements moving, the bodhicitta going down, and the bliss. In the completion stage, ideally, I move the winds, I melt the bodhicitta, experience actually the state of bliss. And it's for this that in general, the reality is that if one hasn't practiced the generation stage well, will never be able to practice correctly the completion realization stage. And so it's totally correct to have the approach like, okay, first you take the first step, then you go to the two. And then here there is a place where in the generation stage also we develop concentration, we develop the capacity of directing our subtle winds and the pranas of energies, a part of stabilizing the mind in the present moment, creating familiarity with all the symbology on a deeper level. There are many fundamental aspects of the generation stage, among which to accumulate merits, wisdom, a whole part that is very important in the generation stage. What Lama transmitted is that we put emphasis on the generation stage and we start to approach the completion stage. Like, okay, what is it? How will it happen? It's as if we did a sort of generation stage of the completion stage. We imagine it to then be able, bit by bit, to get to it. In general, there are two main approaches when we talk about the realization stage. There is the approach of the 5 stages, like, for example, as it's explained in the Guhyasamaja Tantra. There is a very famous commentary from Lama Tsongkhapa that's called The Light That Clarifies the 5 Gradual Stages of the Completion Stage of the Tantra. This text from Lama Tsongkhapa, I had the opportunity to receive teachings in Tibetan on it. There is the English translation. I don't advise it in the sense that it's very difficult. It's one of those texts that I remember that who studied the philosophy here and there was all enthusiastic, and then he reads it, okay, Lama, I didn't understand anything. Also in Tibetan is a difficult text. And I remember that as I was receiving teachings, also my master sometimes, that was a great scholar also, that he would say, oof, difficult, eh? And I would tell myself, well, thank God. Luckily, it's difficult for you also for me. Because those are aspects where you put into words difficult aspects that are not made by words but more concrete experiences. And there are two fundamental approaches, one that is called the 5 stages and the other one the 4 initiations. In the practice of self-healing, the practice is that of the 4 initiations. The 5 stages, just to mention them, without getting in no explanation whatsoever now, they are called
Sem-en, Ösel, Gyulu, Sungchuk. Ösel, Gyulu, Sungchuk. Che vuol dire Luen è, come si tradurrebbe in italiano? Emba è isolato.
isolated, isolated body, isolated speech, isolated mind, illusory body, clear light, and state of union. This is the path. So, of these, there are 2 that need to be counted as 1. So there are 6, but actually they are counted as 5. To give an idea, just quickly, the isolated body refers to the first level of the fact that through the process of vase breathing, that actually is the evoluted version, so to speak, of what we are trying to do, of holding the breath. That is called kumbhaka in Sanskrit. We reach a state where all the winds absorb into the central channel and one loses touch with the outer senses. And so it's a state of concentration that is totally in the inside, doesn't have any more contact and so distraction of any kind from the senses. And so this is the first step of the stage of realization, the isolated body. Then when the winds absorb to a more deeper level, isolated speech, then even deeper, isolated mind, then the very subtle level, we have the illusory body and the clear light, and so the final stage at a very, we call it the union of the illusory body and the clear light. This is to give a very faraway overview. In the practice of the self-healing, we use the path of the realization stage that is called the 4 initiations. We don't get too preoccupied with understanding what an initiation is. We try to understand the process more than anything. Let's get back 1 second to the concept that we explained these previous days, that our goal is not to transform our mind on a gross level, but mainly to transform the predispositions that are there on a very subtle level, to face our mental defilements and particularly our selfishness and ignorance at a very subtle level, changing our predispositions, working at that level. And we gave that analogy, imagining in the field, the ground with various layers and to kind of drill and go to the deepest layer. The goal of the realization stage is this. Let's imagine that in the generation stage we have generated what we want to bring at the deepest level. At the realization stage we drill and bring that state of love, bliss and emptiness from a gross level to a very subtle level. And so the realization stage, the 4 initiations, just like the 4 stages, the 5 stages, have the function of bringing us gradually from a gross level to a more and more subtle level, until getting to the very subtle level. The 4 initiations are, on a more gross level, we start with what is called the initiation of the vase. Then goes to a more subtle level, and there we have the secret initiation, and then the initiation of wisdom. Initiation of wisdom is that brings to a more and more subtle level, getting to the very subtle level, where happens what is called the initiation of speech. So we have vase, initiation of vase, secret initiation, wisdom initiation, and initiation of speech.
Nel primo livello siamo a
At
livello
the first level we are on at a gross level, and is where we have as a goal to generate an identity in a pure state. We identify ourselves with each one of the 5 aggregates in a pure state. We identify ourselves with our qualities developed to their maximum potential until being able to generate an identity that I am Buddha by all means. And so this part is divided into 2 parts. We have what is called traditionally the initiation of the Vajra disciple and the initiation of the Vajra master. The initiation of the Vajra disciple is divided into 5 parts that are the initiation of bell of Buddha Moggasiddhi, initiation of crown of Buddha Ratnasambhava, initiation of the vase of Buddha Kshobhya, initiation of the Vajra of Buddha Amitabha, initiation of name of Buddha Vairochana. That is when we do Lama Tonyan Dorje-kyen, Lama Rinchen Dorje-kyen. Those are the 5 initiations. When we do after that the Hagi Mudra Ayam Buddha Vajradhara, that is the moment of what is called the initiation of the Vajra Master.
In un overview così un po'
generic overview, we are trying bit by bit to get from like more superficial level to get into more details. In the vase initiation, that is called the initiation of vase because it happens through the symbol of water. And this is something that is interesting, that in many spiritual traditions, the initiatic, the rite of initiation happens through water. Also in Christianity, baptism happens with water. It is said that also in ancient times, when there was the initiation, the so-called Abhisheka in Sanskrit in Buddhism, there was even sometimes sort of little pool where one would sit and you would have water poured on you by actually you've done it. Then over time it was transformed in many ways, in different symbologies. Today we have this vase symbol, so when sometimes there are these initiations, one takes some water and drinks it. Sometimes you throw water like this, and it's kind of the same thing. Instead of taking a bath, you spill water. But it's the same thing, you use the symbology of water, of the vase and water. That is why it's called initiation of the vase, because it's the initiation that happens through the symbology of the vase, of water, to be more precise.
Cosa sono questi aspetti?
What are these aspects? Let's remember also the concept of initiation. We could translate it a bit like an introduction. I initiate you to something means that I introduce you to that thing. The initiation of pasta. You have never eaten pasta? Then I give you the initiation. I show you, I bring you, or as I received it, how you eat spaghetti correctly. And so one receives the explanation, that's how you do it, and actually you get the knowledge and experience together with it, and one is initiated to that act. Then after that comes by itself. And so the 5 initiations refer to generating our identity on the basis of the 5 aggregates. And it's a bit like saying, how can I see myself in a pure state if I'm not able to recognize my parts in a pure state? So first identify myself with each one of the parts of which I'm composed in a pure state, and so as a result, if my body and mind are pure, then I am pure. So first we identify ourselves with each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, identifying ourselves with each one of the 5 aggregates in a pure state, identifying ourselves with the qualities of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas and everything that they represent. And so, with the bell initiation of a Moggasiddhi, I am Buddha Moggasiddhi. I allow myself to be a Moggasiddhi, to experience being a Buddha Moggasiddhi.
della corona di
the
Radha.
initiation of the crown of Buddha Ranasambhava, I am Buddha Ranasambhava, and so on. I am each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So I am the aggregate of composition of factors, power of realization, rejoicing. I am the pure aggregate of sensation. I am generosity, humility. I am the pure aggregate of consciousness. I am love, compassion, stability, joy. I am the pure aggregate of discernment in a pure state. I am satisfaction, concentration. I am the pure aggregate of form, and so I am wisdom, infinite inner space. We identify ourselves with each one of the qualities, getting to that identity where one allows himself or herself to be each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. Once that I am each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and so that every time that I am the 5 aggregates in a pure state, I am Vajradhara. Vajradhara is the union of the 5 aggregates. It's like saying,
nella iniziazione del discepolo
at
Vajra,
the initiation of the Vajra disciple, we first identify ourselves with each one of the 5 aggregates, like as being in a pure state, and speaking in technical terms, is the basis of the imputation of the I. So it's like, okay, I have a book, I read the first chapter, how beautiful. Second chapter, how beautiful. I read all the chapters, wow. All chapters are very beautiful. If all chapters are beautiful, then the book is beautiful.
faccio fatica a dire un
I have a hard time to say it's a good book if I haven't read it. Until I'm able to say that the chapters are good, the content is good, all the chapters are good, I have a hard time to identify the book with being good. And so in the first part we identify that each one of the 5 aggregates is pure, and as a consequence I am made out of the 5 aggregates, and so I am pure. And this is called the moment of the initiation of the Vajra Master. I am Vajradhara. We talked the other day about what Vajradhara is, the symbology, the meaning. I am this union of bliss and emptiness. I am this state of purity and of the 5 aggregates, body, mind, sensation, discernment, every aspect of my character. I am pure. I am love, satisfaction, concentration, and so on. I am the union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. This state that we generate, it's as if it was the highest point of the practice, the apex. We first built the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, then now we identified ourselves with each one of them and generated the identity. I am the union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. I am Buddha Vajradhara. I am the union of bliss and emptiness. With this, we conclude the base initiation. The goal of the so-called secret initiation of wisdom and of speech is to bring this apex, this identity, I am Vajradhara, which is not an external aspect, but I am the union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas with all the qualities, and bliss and emptiness. I am this state of Buddha. We bring it from a gross level to a subtle level until getting to a very subtle level of the clear light. So when we talked about making that hole, like drilling and pouring something pure inside of it, what we pour into it is really this indivisible state of bliss and emptiness, and conditional love and wisdom that is being Buddha Vajradhara. And that state, through the process of our own internal winds, absorbing our subtle winds and pranas, naturally that brings the being to a deeper state of consciousness. So we use this process, this normal process of absorption of winds, induced process, to bring that state of Vajradhara from a gross level to a subtle level, up to a very subtle level. So the initiation of vase is when we get to this apex, I am Vajradhara by all means. The initiation, the secret initiation is when we take that and bring it from a gross level to a subtle level. The secret initiation is where the wisdom initiation is when we bring it from a subtle level to a very subtle level, and the initiation of speech, of word, is when this very subtle level is actually lived fully. And the initiation of speech in the actual completion stage is the obtainment of Buddhahood. That is what actually is the initiation of speech. It's called the initiation of speech because it's beyond speech, it's beyond words. You cannot put it into words. It's the enlightenment itself. So, in practice, what we actually do in the whole practice, starting from the preliminary practices, we generate love towards ourselves, the generation, until simulating the whole process of the achievement of enlightenment. And the practice ends with the simulation of the achievement of enlightenment. And then there is the final conclusion of remanifesting oneself to the world. And so, is it a bit clear what we mean by the 4 initiations and what their function is? So we say that in the Vase initiation, we are introduced to each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas as being ourselves. In the secret initiation, we are introduced to that identity to a more subtle level. In the initiation of wisdom to a even more subtle level, and in the initiation of word, we stay into that very subtle state.
One
of the things that this process, since the teachings of Buddha, is that it has been always transmitted through symbols. Some of these symbols speak with a lot of strength to us, others today, the times in where we live, don't speak very loudly to us. We need to learn how to nourish them with meaning. And also, what Lama did, that was great in the practice of self-feeling, that some of these symbols, not having anymore the possibility of connecting easily with the meaning, then he went directly to the meaning. And this mostly is about the secret initiation and the wisdom initiation. Now, let's see each one of them. Today, I wanted within the day of today to see these 4 passages. Now, the thing that helps us is that here the 5 initiations of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, having understood how you visualize one, you understand also all the others. So maybe let's just explain one in details and then the others just come as a consequence. There are many ways, many different ways to do that. There are many levels of details, of depth with which we can do this. So one doesn't have to do it in the way that I will describe it now. I'm describing one of the ways. We can do it in a simpler way, we can do it in a more detailed and complex way also. There is an important detail. That is when we do these 5 initiations, there is the part where we eliminate our negativities. And someone sometimes asks me, Lama, but if I have already generated at the beginning the identity that I'm Buddha Vajrasattva, and I generated my 5 chakras, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and so on, why do I still need to eliminate negativities? For one simple reason, that we are still generating. So the generation stage, that means if we did the practice to such a level where by all means I identify myself with being Vajrasattva, with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and I don't have any identity whatsoever with the various mental defilements and so on, here I don't eliminate anything. I only focus on the identity at each one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas with the characteristics that they represent. And since the very great majority of us, when we are doing the practice, there is still the ordinary identity. We is already a very evolved level to get to this point of the practice and to live it as being actually Vajrasattva with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And so when we are there and we do Lama Toni Dorje Kyen and eliminate fear and envy, jealousy, we feel that we have those feelings, those negativities. It's not that I pretend that, no, I don't have anything to eliminate because I'm Vajrasattva, right? So what it's said is that in this moment of the practice, there is a specific term in Tibetan that says, I maintain the appearance of being Buddha, but I remove the identity, the apprehension, so I visualize myself as being in a pure state, but I sort of remove that identity and still give space to that part of mind that still sees itself with, identifies with jealousy and fear and so on. And so I disconnect from that. I allow myself once again to say, I am not jealousy, I am not fear, I am not envy, and it's for this that I can eliminate them. If I was fear, jealousy, envy, then I wouldn't be able to do that. But just because I am not those things, then I can eliminate them. How does the process of visualization happen? First of all, we visualize in front of us Guru Buddha, these 5 chakras, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. We ask the blessings. We start from Buddha Mogasiddhi, Lama Toni Dorje Kyen, which is a request to Buddha Mogasiddhi to grant us the initiation of the bell. When initiations are done, normally, how many times? Some of you have already done initiations. How many times? You repeat like verses of request of the initiation. Similarly to this, we request Lama Toni Dorje Kyen, Lama Rinpoche Dorje Kyen. We are requesting to receive that initiation. So we do Lama Toni Dorje Kyen, and Toni Dorje means Mogasiddhi, so we ask Guru Buddha Mogasiddhi his blessings.
Chiediamo a Guru Buddha le sue benedizioni.
We ask Guru Buddha his blessings to grant us the initiation. At this point, we visualize in front of us that there is Guru Buddha, Buddha Mogasiddhi at his secret chakra. From Buddha Mogasiddhi at the secret chakra, rays of light come to us, and at the same time, we are talking about the initiation of the bell, because those are 5 symbols through which this inner state of bliss is generated. The first symbol is bell. So usually, if we also see like the video that Lama Ganchen made at the beginning with Marco Columbro of the practice of Symphony, okay, you don't see Marco Columbro, but you hear his voice, but it was him that prepared everything. At the moment of that, Lama Ganchen rings the bell, because that represents not what we should do in the practice, but actually represents what we visualize. We visualize the sound of the bell, and through the sound of the bell, we generate a new feeling of bliss, with which the emptiness of intrinsic existence is realized. Being the initiation of the vase, there is a detail that could be visualized or not, but that I like and that is also important, that we visualize that in front of us there are the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, or the 5 chakras of Guru Buddha, and around there are the 5 great mothers, like they are represented here, the mothers of the 5 elements, and they bring with them some vases filled with nectar. And so we receive the initiation from Guru Buddha Mogasiddhi, and the great mothers pour nectar, and this nectar enters our head, fills completely our body. This nectar that fills our body generates a state of bliss, and so in that moment that the state of bliss is generated by the bell that we hear, by the light and nectar coming from Guru Buddha Mogasiddhi, and by the nectar that fills our body. So this, in the practice, this part of the visualization is when we are doing Garuda Mudra. So we are in this moment, is when we receive light and nectar from Buddha Moghasiddhi, green in color, and hear the bell, receive the nectar that fills completely our body, and through this profound feeling of bliss that we generate, with which the nature of everything is realized, the so-called emptiness, we imagine that this state of bliss doesn't allow negativities anymore to exist, to live there. They can't coexist together. So when we eliminate from the secret chakra any form of negativity, fear, jealousy, envy, and so on, the strength that eliminates, the force that eliminates those negativities is that state of bliss and emptiness that has been generated. And so, if we get into the details, usually, experience a new feeling of bliss and emptiness that purifies every negativity related to the secret chakra. The way that these negativities are purified, if we imagine that we expel them in the form of black smoke, dirt, and also in the form of 5 animals. Nothing against animals, actually we love them, but it's a symbology. In some contexts, animals represent some qualities, like for example you have various contexts where you have like Garuda, you have the dragon, the tiger, the horse. Also this, for example, we can find them on the door of the temple. You can see that there are 4 animals represented that represent some qualities that we need to develop. In this case, animals are some symbols to represent what we need to eliminate. So the secret chakra, there is Garuda. Garuda is this great big bird, a sort of eagle that is said to be the king of birds. And Garuda represents at the same time fear and envy. And one would ask, but why? If he's the king of everything, why does he need to be afraid? Because he's afraid of losing his place. Usually, who's afraid to lose his place? Who has the place or who hasn't? How is it possible? You reach like the highest place, but there is someone who can take it, and so there is envy, which is connected with fear. Look, that did that, and that has like bigger wings, maybe it can fly better than me, or this and that. And so the Garuda in this context represents this aspect of comparing ourselves with others, seeing characteristics of others negatively and the positive qualities, and instead of rejoicing of that, we are kind of afraid. And so we take our own fear, our envy and jealousy, but mostly envy. We manifest it, we materialize it in the aspect of Garuda birds, of black smoke and dirt, and they leave our body, dissolving into space. And the force that eliminates them is the blessings of Amoghasiddhi and the state of bliss and emptiness that we generate.
Okay.
Then we can also put emphasis on one aspect or the other. There is who puts more emphasis on jealousy or who on fear and so on. And then in self-feeling, also in this little book here, if we check, also in the commentary, Lama also put emphasis to the various sicknesses related to each one of the 5 chakras. And so there one can get into it and read what are the sicknesses related to the secret chakra. If one has a sort of sickness or another, then can put an emphasis on that. The meaning here is that all energies become balanced at the secret chakra, and as a consequence of that, every sickness is healed, because sicknesses are a state of unbalance. When body is balanced in harmony naturally, sicknesses are healed. And so we visualize that that state of balance that is generated heals any form of sickness. When we And here there is also another aspect that, okay, in this part of the practice, to put emphasis strongly on the elimination of the negativities, we breathe in from the nostrils and breathe out through our mouth. When one during the practice doesn't feel these negativities in a very strong way, then at that point can also breathe in through the nostrils and breathe out through the nostrils. In general, when a negative emotion is strong and you feel more present, then at that point you breathe out from the mouth. Then, when we breathe in, from Guru Buddha Mokasid in front of us come rays of light and nectar, green in color, and they fill us completely. That nectar coming from the mothers that fills our body, and we focus on that. And at that point, we generate all the qualities related to Buddha Moghasiddhi. So we concentrate on each one of the qualities, and we ourselves transform into Buddha Moghasiddhi. Here we can do the visualization in two ways. Either we concentrate our attention on Buddha Moghasiddhi at the secret chakra, or we ourselves arise completely as Buddha Moghasiddhi. Both in one case and the other, the goal is to generate that identity. I am Buddha Moghasiddhi. To generate this identity is easier to visualize oneself in the complete aspect of Buddha Moghasiddhi. Receiving the blessings of Guru Buddha Moghasiddhi, each negativity has been eliminated, and I arise in the aspect of Buddha Moghasiddhi, with the qualities developed to the maximum potential. And at this moment, when we recite the mantra Om Moghasiddhi Hum and we do the mudra, in that moment, it's not the moment of accumulation of the mantra, it's the moment of generating the identity. I am Buddha Moghasiddhi. Remembering that I am Buddha Moghasiddhi means that I am power of realization, I am rejoicing, I am action in a pure state, I am all that Moghasiddhi represents. When we go to the other Dhyani Buddhas, the process is the same. Lama Rinpoche Dorje, instead of hearing the bell, a crown is offered to us. And this crown touches our head, and we experience a new feeling of bliss. Maybe someone has seen, for example, during the ceremony of Ramnachenmo, that has been done here also recently, or in other occasions, when you do self-initiations in a traditional way, what happens is that one also wears some kind of strange clothes, like a sort of a wig that represents generating the identity as the deity. And when this moment comes is when one wears the crown. And until that moment the crown is not placed. At that point one receives that crown, and it's a symbol that through which we generate once again the state of bliss. And we can go deeper and in seeing the story where the symbols come from. But Ranasambhava represents the part of generosity, richness. One cannot develop generosity if it doesn't feel rich, if it's not full, if it doesn't have inner fullness. And so the crown represents also this inner wealth, developed fully. So one receives the crown, flow of light, nectar, yellow in color, the mothers pour the nectar, generate a state of bliss, and I eliminate negativities related to Buddha Ranasambhava in the form of black smoke and dirt and dark yellow horses. Horses are one of the symbols of arrogance. I remember once explaining to me that when you do some sort of competitions with horses, like the competitions of jumps, when a horse makes a mistake, one of the ways to punish the horse is to make his head bow in front of everyone, to go down, because it's something that he struggles with. And so what happens here is that we take a characteristic of the horse to represent our aspect of arrogance, of sense of superiority, and so on.
Nella Kshobhya
In
riceviamo
Akshobhya, we receive the initiation of the base through the water that is poured. With Amitabha, we receive a Vajra. Actually, it's really given to us a Vajra. And with the initiation of Vairocana, a name is given to us. So let's imagine that Buddha Vairocana gives us our name, which is one of the five Deni Buddhas. You're Vairocana, you're Amitabha, you're Akshobhya, you're Nasambhava, you're Amoghasiddhi. In general, when, for example, we do the initiation of Yamantaka, some of you have already received that, there is a moment where you toss a flower, a petal, on a small mandala, and that defines the family to which one belongs. This represents also this moment where it is said, you are of the family of Amoghasiddhi, you are of the family of Ratnasambhava, and so on. What does this mean? It is said that each one of us can reach enlightenment. We reach enlightenment in the aspect of one of the five Deni Buddhas. If I tell you, you're of the family of Amitabha, that means that you have a lot of attachment. The main poison on which you should work is the part of attachment, desire, dissatisfaction. Akshobhya family, I need to work more on anger. Family of Nasambhava, arrogance, avarice. Amoghasiddhi, fear, envy. Vairocana, ignorance. So it's like saying what our predominant mental defilement is also becomes the tool through which we reach the state of Buddhahood in the process of overcoming death. And so in this case, in general, when we do these practices together, one either imagines either all the five names. Usually Lama Ganchen would do it with all the five names, so you would take the deity of the center of the mandala, in this case Buddha Vairocana. In the self-filling mandala, the center of the mandala is Buddha Vairocana. So one can imagine the name of Buddha Vairocana, or one of the five is fine in the same way. Before concluding for lunch, and then after lunch this afternoon, we do the practice a bit more briefly to have more time to explain all of this. I just wanted very briefly to explain one of the characteristic of the five Deni Buddhas that we still haven't faced. We mentioned it many times, but we never faced it, and it's called the five wisdoms. The five wisdoms exist on three levels. They are called the five wisdoms of the basis, the five wisdoms of the path, and the five wisdoms of the result or resultant. And as we explained yesterday, or when it was, we say that the basis refers to the resources available today, the path, those resources, not the result, those resources developed to the maximum potential, and the path, the process of development. Five wisdoms are five characteristics of our minds that we all have. And it's like a modus operandi and a way of working of the mind, like a five main bricks of our mind, through which we interact with the world, and through which our mind works. And understanding these five wisdoms better at the level of the basis and trying to imagine them at the level of the result, also this is one of the best tools to be able to imagine what does it mean to be a Buddha. And so let's start from the five wisdoms of the basis. Following the order of the self-feeling, you have Buddha, Amoghasiddhi, the secret chakra, they all accomplish in wisdom. All accomplishing wisdom of the basis, it's like the wisdom that little accomplishes. And this is the characteristic of our mind to act. When I say, I want to do this or I don't want to do that, is when we have the intention. We have said that Buddha Amoghasiddhi is also the embodiment of the aggregate of composition of factors in a pure state. Among the various composition of factors, there is the mental factor of intention. That is what is the basis of our action. So if we say, okay, where is the karma? To say, okay, the action is karma, is the mental factor intention. And intention is about an action. I want to do this, I don't want to do that. And this is called the all-accomplishing wisdom. The all-accomplishing wisdom of the basis is an intention that is full of doubts, uncertainty, lack of clarity. Shall I do or not? I go or not? Yellow, green, blue. Or maybe even choices that are not aware, not coherent. The wisdom that all accomplishes of the result is to have no more doubts and to always act in a coherent way, to always be able to act in the way that is most suitable and most beneficial for oneself and the others, having overcome completely any form of uncertainty and doubt. And as a consequence, there is no more fear. And for this, in this moment, our wisdom that all accomplishes, the wisdom of the basis, is that aspect of our mind that says, okay, shall I do it or not? I am hungry, I should eat. All our actions come from this aspect of mind that performs the actions. At the navel chakra, with Buddha Ranasambhava, there is the wisdom of equanimity, or of equality, let's say of equanimity. Then translations, never take them like as definitive. Very often they leave some. The so-called wisdom of equanimity of the basis is our capacity today to perceive, comprehend, see similarities among things. Like I gave the example the other day, the wisdom of equanimity is that I look at all of you and say, I'm able to say, you're all human beings. Then I could divide, okay, these are the shortest ones, these are the tallest ones. You're all of the same height. Here there are like the blonde ones, the bald ones, men, women, I don't know, we can create many kind of categories. Let's imagine just for a moment how would our mind be if we wouldn't be able to put together categories and similarities. How chaotic would it be? So this is one of the fundamental characteristics of our mind in order to function, to be able to put together similarities, the various characteristics. When we develop more and more these characteristics, it means that we are able to see more and more the similarities at deeper levels. So not only you're all human beings, but each one of you suffers, wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer, and the same potential. We are together in samsara, is empty of intrinsic existence. So I'm able also to see the similarity that is between each one of you, and also as an end, as a sentient being, or the similarity that there is between you and the table that is in front of you. You're all impermanent, also the table, or to see that we are all empty of intrinsic existence as being interdependent. And so, the more one develops the wisdom of equanimity, the more you're able to put things together. Let's skip a little bit Akshobhya and go to Amitabha. Amitabha, the wisdom of discernment, sometimes translated as wisdom of discrimination, even if in Italian discrimination is not the right translation. Discernment is the part of our mind that discerns, that discriminates in the sense that it sees the specific characteristics of each one. Yes, you're all human beings, but each one has different characteristics. There is like who's tall, who's short, who's man, woman, or like this, like that. We can see the characteristics of each one. It's true that both you and the table are both impermanent, but one is a living being, another one is not a living being. The wisdom of discernment is the capacity of the basis, is the capacity that we have already today of giving a name to things, of putting a label and saying, okay, that this is this, that is that, to see the specific characteristics of each one. It's a bit like saying, I have 3 children, they are all my children, this is the wisdom of equanimity, but I'm able to see the specific characteristics of each one of them. This is the wisdom of discernment. Lack of wisdom of discernment? Because you're all my children, then I always act the same towards all of them. This brings, on the other hand, to a lack of equanimity. Because equanimity, here there's just a quick note, it doesn't mean to do the same to everyone, but to have the same love towards everyone and to adapt to the need and capacity of each one. I cannot be equanimous to each one if I don't have the capacity of discerning the needs and capacity of each one. I don't know if this is clear. We sometimes think that equanimity in the behavior means to act the same way towards everyone. Actually, no. Imagine a doctor that is equanimous, giving a pill, the same pill to everyone. Like he kills some and helps others. The equanimous doctor is that who tries to help everyone in the same way and has the same love towards everyone, but adapting to the needs of each one. To one I will give a certain drug, to another one another drug. And so equanimity as an attitude requires both the wisdom of equanimity and of discernment. The resultant wisdom of discernment is the capacity of seeing the specific characteristics of every phenomenon until a very specific level, without losing the equanimity of what is in common.
Buddha
Vairochana, wisdom, mirror-like wisdom. Mirror-like wisdom, let's imagine really a mirror. A mirror has the capacity to reflect at the same time many objects, right? If I put the mirror here in front, it can reflect all of you and so on. And similarly, our mind reflects the objects that appear to our 6 senses. And in our mind can be reflected what we see, what we touch, what we hear, the thoughts that we have, the memories, the projections, mental images. So we have the objects of the 6 senses: form, sound, smell, touch, taste, and mental images. These 6 objects are reflected by the mirror of mind. The more the mirror of our mind is clean, the more objects can be clear. The more it's dirty, the less they can be clear. So the mirror-like wisdom of the business is that is able to reflect few things. Imagine a mirror that is very dirty, there is like a small area that is clear. Only that area will be able to reflect. So the mirror-like wisdom of the result is a mirror that is completely clean and is able to reflect with clarity everything that appears into it. If we had to give an analogy, I explained many times that in every second to our brain comes from our senses around like 11 million pieces of information, and these are calculations that don't include the mental consciousness, just through the external senses. So if we add also that, it's much more. And of these 11 million bits, according to some studies, we are aware of something around from 10 to 50 bits. That is, the wisdom, the mirror-like wisdom is quite a dirty mirror. So let's imagine the resultant mirror of a Buddha. It's like saying, being able to be aware to reflect the 11 million bits available. In English you would say mind-blowing. It's not really conceivable. But let's imagine the all-accomplishing wisdom of the result, having no doubts on any action. Equanimity, to be able to see and perceive clearly the similarity between all phenomena and beings. Wisdom of discernment, to be able to see together with this, to also see the specific characteristics of each one, being able to adapt and see each one with its particularities. Clear mirror-like wisdom, to not lose anything of all the phenomena that appear to us and have clarity on all the world surrounding us, everything that appears to us. We can start to have more or less an idea of what being a Buddha means. Wisdom of Dharmadhatu, of Buddha Akshobhya, the heart. I'd rather explain it as the last one, because it's not a characteristic of mind. Wisdom of Dharmadhatu is mind itself. Wisdom of Dharmadhatu, of the basis, is the mirror that is dirty of the various mental defilements, and the wisdom of Dharmadhatu, of the result, is mind itself, not dirty anymore of those mental defilements. And so it's also it's given the example of the sky. So the sky is the same. In one moment is full of clouds, another moment is there are no clouds anymore, so it's the same sky. Our mind is the same. There is the moment where it's filled with ignorance, selfishness, anger, jealousy, and so on, that are present in the mind but are not part of the mind, are not intrinsically part of the mind. It's like how the clouds are in the sun and block the sun, are in the sky and block the sun, but they're not part of the sky, they're not of the nature of the sky. Otherwise they could never be also not there. They could never be like a sky with no clouds if they were of the same nature. So the wisdom of the Dharmadhatu of the basis is our mind with the various mental defilements. The wisdom of Dharmadhatu of the result is the mind itself, free of the various mental defilements. So when we talk about the 5 Dhyana Buddhas, Abhogasiddhi represents the all-accomplishing wisdom, Ranasambhava the wisdom of equanimity, Akshobhya the wisdom of Dharmadhatu, Amitabha the wisdom of discernment, Vairochana the mirror-like wisdom. And when we are able to get closer to that a little bit, to these 5 wisdoms, then 1, we are able to see and start to imagine, to kind of taste a little bit what a Buddha is. And 2, we also see that we have all the cards, all the papers to become one, so to speak. I have the wisdom, the all-accomplishing wisdom. I need to accomplish a little bit more. I need to develop my equanimity wisdom a little bit more. I need to clean the dirt of from the mind, but I have the wisdom of Dharmadhatu, and I have the mirror-like wisdom, and so on. And this, when we put the 6 syllables, they represent together both the 5 aggregates and the 5 wisdoms. This was one of the other aspects of the 5 Dhyana Buddhas that is important to understand. Me personally, it took me a long time to understand what these 5 wisdoms were, because usually they are not explained with a lot of clarity, or at least when I studied them, I tried to understand. It took me quite a long time to get to something that I could say, I understood. Probably as my ignorance of my path, I don't know. But something that according to me is very beautiful and not very complex to understand. Okay, we stop for lunch. Now this afternoon we will do the practice a little bit more quickly to give more time to the rest of explanation of the completion stage.
Lame kutse rapten chi nam kartin le chokchur gepa dan losan tempe drume sasumgi drowe munsel takto ne gyur chi nimo dele tsindele nime kuyan dele kshin ninsen takto dele pe kuncho sumki chingi lob kuncho sumki ngodrubut sol kuncho sumki trashi sho omo ahun tamba lame sangye rinpoche kyopa lame tamcho rinpoche dremba lame gindu rinpoche kyamne kuncho sumla chopa buon appetito. Volevo solo a livello
lunch, everyone, and just on a practical level, who has to leave today and is not remaining until the end of the afternoon session and wants to come to say hi now, who remains is welcome, and who remains also later, then I invite you to come later so that we can leave time for everyone to eat.